Awesome. Let's jump right in. I appreciate you guys taking time out of what I'm sure is a busy Thursday, no matter where you are. My name's Tony Roy. I'm one of the co-founders and COO here at Pop Menu. I maybe have met some of you along the way, or maybe you've attended a webinar. You know, I like to keep it fresh, not be too boring. And so to help me with that today, we're joined by some experts in the field. My man, Chip, restaurant coach, podcast host extraordinaire. He's the man. If you haven't listened to him before, you should. He invited us in the past, so he's a friend of ours. We enjoyed our time there. Chip, glad to have you, my man.
Appreciate being here.
Yeah. And then Kara, which is one of my favorite clients for a variety of reasons, from Max's North America, by far the best Filipino cuisine in North America. If you haven't gone and you don't get the fried chicken, you have missed out 1,000%. Trust me on that. Kara, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, look, we appreciate you taking your time. Well, look, we're here today to say, how can you recession-proof your restaurant in 2025? Obviously, the world has been going through all kinds of stuff. It's never a dull moment. And obviously, we've had some other things happening more recently. So now we're seeing how things shake out. But by and large, I hope that we enter 2025 prepared for what is going to be an even better year than 2024. Obviously, a lot of challenges out there. I think we all recognize that the challenges never seem to go away in this space. That's part of why probably many of us are drawn to it, because it's never a dull moment. And so we're going to talk about some best practices and things you can be doing, both from an operator's perspective as well as from a restaurant strategist and Chip. So we're going to get started with an audience poll. We like a good poll here at Pop Menu. So take your time and answer this, but what keeps you up at night as the operator? You can check as many of those as you like. I'm guessing some might check all of them. The economy, always fun. Labor pressures seems to be always challenging. Obviously, the cost of goods, consumer spending, and then technology. So a lot of people, obviously, cost of operating the business is clearly always top of mind. Cost of food, cost of supplies, cost of labor, all of those things. Well, good. Well, I appreciate you guys. So what we're going to cover today, the state of the restaurant market according to our operators, you guys. Questions that every operator should be asking themselves as they prepare for the economic curveballs that come our way at all times of the year, regardless of what's happening externally. And lastly, real world examples of what great restaurant operators are doing today to thrive in tough and in healthy economies. I think a lot of the things we share today will not just help you navigate volatile markets or volatile situations with rising cost of goods or labor, but these are also best practices that you can apply in good times. And so I do think addressing a lot of the opportunities we'll learn about here today are going to be helpful for you, regardless of what's going on in your market or in the economy in general. So restaurant sales. So some of this data you may have seen or read about, but after adjusting for menu price inflation, restaurant sales declined. Not drastically, but they did decline year over year in September. And so we know that this is a challenge that you guys are facing. How do I reach more people? How do I do it in a manner that's efficient for my staff? How do I do it in a manner that's economically viable for me and my business? And ultimately, how can I do this so I can get through to more prosperous times? So I think this is something that we think about a lot. And in fact, over 50% of restaurant operators reported a decrease in consumer or customer traffic in September. That's 18 months of net declines that what we've seen here. And I think like that is a big factor when you think about how you market your restaurant, as you think about the holidays coming up. Typically a great time for most operators, high sales, a great opportunity to find and engage with new guests that hopefully become lifelong guests of the restaurant and your operation. I think marketing ourselves effectively during this times really pays off down the road. Well, I always tell people, and I'm sure our guests can speak to this more eloquently than I, but a lot of restaurants that we dealt with in the early days of COVID, what we heard very consistently was, wow, I wish I would have captured more information. I wish I'd have known more about my guests, who they are, things they love, what are they engaging with, because I sure could have used that in my marketing efforts when things got really tough in the early days of COVID. The good news is every day is an opportunity for operators to be closer to their guests, by making it easy for them to sign up and become a follower of their business so that they can remarket to them about things that are very top of mind for them as the individual consumer. But obviously with traffic down, I always say at Pop Menu when we consult with restaurants, and whether you use Pop Menu or some other vendor that you might be using, I think the first responsibility of a quality partner to the restaurant is how do I promote your business? How do I drive more people to your business? And how do I maximize free traffic channels first? There's no other larger free traffic channel than Google. And then also allowing your guests to share and promote you very easily. Those are two big things that you can do to drive more traffic to the business. You can have the best food, the best service, but if you have limited guests that you're servicing, you're always going to find yourself not optimized or maybe stressed more so than you need. Let's go here. Although inflation has dropped significantly from its peak a couple years ago, we can see on average consumers are spending 30% less, which is down from 30% on food budgets, down from 40%. And almost 90% of restaurant operators say the restaurant market today is the toughest it's been since the pandemic, which I agree with. It feels like when COVID hit, it was like getting punched in the mouth by Mike Tyson. But quickly we had to make some decisions. So we said, well, let's turn on ordering. Let's partner with some delivery partners. Let's put some tables outside for outdoor seating, and then let's run with it. Now what you have is the fluctuating cost of goods. Labor continues to be a challenge, very unpredictable. Rising cost of that labor is certainly depending on where you are. People in California, New York, Chicago certainly feel that aspect of it. But Chip, this is probably a great spot for you to jump in. You coach restaurants across the country on marketing and other disciplines. Like, what are the things that you're hearing from restaurants in terms of what is working for them?
So it's a great question.
Restaurants you work with, sorry.
Yeah, for sure. And I do. I work with over 150 different restaurants all over the country. So all different concepts, all different markets. That previous slide, that graphic is really, really telling. People still want to go out. They just can't, right? And then dovetails so nicely into the statistic you just shared, is that people want to go out. They just have less discretionary income to do it. So it doesn't change what we have to do. It puts more attention on managing prime costs, right? So everybody listening understands the importance of managing cost of goods and labor. It's always more important, especially as we're in a recessionary period. Less people out. We can't spend on goods. We can't spend on labor the way we have been. They have to come down as revenue comes down. And then the other piece, when you're talking on the marketing side, right? Marketing really has to do, I always say it's really simple. It's simpler than we think. Marketing comes down to two things. Number one, getting people to raise their hand. Number two, getting people to follow you. So you walk into a busy room, you say, hey, who likes tacos? Let me see a show of hands. A bunch of people raise their hands. You say, great, everybody who raised their hands, follow me, right? They have to identify themselves as needing something or wanting the something that you have, and then getting them to take action. And that's no different any time of day. It's just more important now. And we have to focus on identifying those people and then keeping in touch with those people. You already touched on that, right? List growth and maintaining those relationships are even more crucial now. We know the people, we just have to continue identifying them, getting them to change their behavior.
Yeah. I think that's a great point, because I'd like to chime in on that part, because I say that all the time to operators. In fact, I met with an operator this morning. She started out with a food truck and out of her house, and now she's opening up her first bricks and mortar. And I was talking about the importance of almost being fanatical about capturing the guest information when they come in, because without that, your marketing efforts are always sort of tampered, right? You want a large audience for those, and then you want to be able to learn about them. I always tell restaurants, you mentioned follower capture. And sometimes we think, I'm just getting an email. And the way I describe it is I think about like, okay, well, if I can capture Chip's email, Chip's going to come back and transact with me 8 times this year. Well, 6 of those times, he's going to bring other consumers or other guests with him. And half of those guests will eventually become a follower of my business as well. And then 2 out of all those people will do a large party order in the next 12 months. One of them will do a catering order in the next 18 months. The value of capturing Chip is not just that email or that immediate transaction. The value of Chip might be $812. And if you think about it in that perspective, it probably makes you want to be a little bit more fanatical about capturing that and making it easy for people to raise their hand and join your community. Sometimes you can know offers, and sometimes it's simply just making sure that you're asking, right?
Tony, it's the number one thing. I used to do this years ago when I was running the front door of big fancy restaurants in New York City. Right, so that's what I did. I worked at fine dining, Michelin-starred restaurants, and long before this was common practice, I'd Google every single person on the guest list because most of the people I knew and the people that I didn't know, I figured I probably should know because if you're spending 150, 200, $250 a night, per head for dinner, they're probably somebody that we should know a little bit better. And then whenever I had walk-ins, people would walk in and they say, hi, can I get a table for two? And I did this thing just because it made sense to me, not even realizing it was weird or not common practice. But people would say, hey, do we have a table for two? I say, yeah, no problem. My name's Chip. What's your name? And they'd say, oh, my name's Tony Roy. I said, Tony, it's nice to meet you. Are you in our system? What's your phone number? Let me check. Oh, great. You're not in our system. And what's your email address? Perfect. Now we got you. Now we got you in here. We'll know who you are next time. Hey, follow me. I'll show you right to the table. It takes 35 seconds, and now I know people. And when you have a restaurant that does 100, 200, 300 walk-ins a day, how many names do we put down on a clipboard and then throw out the piece of paper at the end of the night? We can capture all those people every single night. Our business changes in profound ways.
Yeah, I think that's huge. That was perfect. I'm glad we're recording this. I'm going to use that in our training material. That is key. In the restaurants that use Pop Menu, the ones that really excel, they do a great job of exactly that. Sometimes it's leaving a QR code that you can scan while you're in the waiting area, or it's training their staff on letting them know, hey, if we capture your information, we can let you know about upcoming special events and secret menu items, almost like a VIP. Everybody wants to be norm. So awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Labor cost, I think that was one of the key things in the poll we started here. Restaurant labor costs rose 33% year over year on average. I would love to tell you that I think those labor costs are going to come down. I don't think that's the case. I do think what that tells us is when we're consulting with restaurants is that's where things like integrations, automation in your marketing, meaning things that you can sort of set up as rules. One example of how we're helping restaurants use automation is, with our email tool. If Kara tells us that he loves the lobster roll and we take it off the menu and 4 months later we bring it back, automation allows us to automatically message Kara when that lobster roll is brought back on the menu without me having to remember to do it, remind others to do it, or incur any additional cost. So looking for tools and systems that have things like automation included, so it's less manual, that will ensure that more of those activities are getting done. Or leveraging different things like AI phone systems also put less strain on the existing staff and ensures that you're not missing out on opportunities because you are understaffed or maybe your staff is newer. And I think that's important. So in other words, finding and holding on to labor has become significantly more expensive. The other thing I think about a lot with the phone stuff, and I think we might touch on that a little bit later. If not, I'll highlight it if we have time, is I think about the cost of labor. I was actually in Dallas this week, I was in Dallas this week, but I was consulting. I was on web with a customer in California. I forget the exact minimum wage there. Maybe it's $16, $17 an hour. But then you think about the cost of benefits or insurance and liability of having them on premise. You got to train them up, you have systems, all that stuff. Great. Well, if you end up all in costs, let's say $25, $30 an hour, then I really want to make sure that that person is providing hospitality to the people that are right there in front of them. Bogging them down with something like the phone, where now I have to answer 4 or 5 questions that I may not know the answers to. Meanwhile, I've got 3 guests standing in front of me. That's a good example where someone can use technology like AI answering so that the staff person can deal with that. The phone can handle queries like, hey, do you have outdoor seating? Do you have gluten-free options? Can I place an order? Can I add myself to the wait list? I think looking for systems and automation and AI as ways to offset some of this will help you do more with less of your existing staff and be less reliant on external folks. Another key stat, I'm just bombarding you with stats today. I'm ready. This is probably the most concerning stat from our study, at least from our perspective, is nearly 2/3 of operators say their business or one of their locations may not survive another year if market conditions don't improve. Well, first off, let's hope that market conditions do improve. I think there are some signs that could happen and likely. Let's hope so. But I think also we can take care of certain things that safeguard us a bit from the external environment. Let's go here. How are restaurants planning to tackle marketing challenges. One, increasing marketing activity. I think that's a no-brainer. Good times, bad times. One of the things I tell people, and it sounds like Chip just alluded to this, is you need to be consistent with getting the brand out there. I think a lot about a restaurant in my neighborhood called The Bungalow. I love it. I think it's the best spot in Newport Beach, California. But sometimes I just get busy. And if I haven't heard from Bungalow, what we forget about as operators is I've got 8 different text messages, or I saw 8 different Instagram posts for competing restaurants in the area. It doesn't mean I don't love The Bungalow, but they didn't stay top of mind with me. And so naturally, I don't visit them as frequently. There are some tools out there. I think we'll highlight a few today that allow you to be more consistent with your marketing by leveraging automation, by leveraging things like AI, and we'll show you how to do it. If you're a small operator, this allows you to compete with the bigger competition who has much larger marketing budgets. If you're a larger operator, then this allows you to produce more content, more effective, more efficient, without having to continue to hire significant volumes of staff. The point is, we want to give you choice in those options. But we do see a bifurcation between restaurants who are doing well and growing and those who are struggling to keep the lights on. The big factors that come into play is really the consistency of the marketing, getting in front of their fans and potential fans as much as possible. I think those are huge factors. Chip, maybe you can add to this. What do you see markets doing to navigate a tough market?
Yeah, I think something that I'm seeing a lot of my clients do is, and it's right in keeping with what you said here, the left side, the left graphic, right? Increase marketing activity. Almost all of them say, well, I want to do more, full well knowing that they don't have the time, the bandwidth to do more. And I think what I'm seeing a lot of people do is, how can we work smarter, not harder? How can we bring efficiencies? You've already talked about it. I'm so outspoken about the phone answering capabilities and what Pop Menu does. I just gave a talk at Bar and Restaurant Expo 2 weeks ago in San Antonio. Last week, I was at the Florida Restaurant Show. I was doing a Q&A panel on marketing. The first question I got from the group in both talks were, how is AI going to be changing our industry? And almost across the board, we said, you don't have to worry about AI right now, except in one key area. And I started it off, and every panelist agreed with me. They said that the talk-to-text capabilities, the AI phone answering, is the thing that will cut your payroll, will make for a better guest experience, and all of that. It's coming up with those smarter ways of doing it, the smarter ways of thinking about marketing, and really marketing in reverse. And we'll talk about that the further we go along. But thinking in terms of what goal you're trying to accomplish, and then what you're going to do to achieve that goal. Look at all of your marketing activity and make sure you understand what it's trying to accomplish and that you're measuring the effort. Because if you're just doing stuff to do stuff, I'm guessing that 30 or 40% of your activity can actually just go away, and you can focus on the 60 or 70% that's actually moving the needle in your business. And you'll know that when you really start measuring.
Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, to finish the loop on what I went off that tangent about the answering, since you brought it back up, is it's not just the fact that you're paying this cost for labor, but it's the fact that depending where you are, they likely turn over every 6 or 7 months. And so it takes 2 to 3 months to train them, and then they get on and then they leave, and you're on the hamster wheel again. Whereas things like AI answering, can handle 300-400 calls at the same time. They know everything about your menu and your business. You never have to train them. Automatically, you can see how you can do more with less. So thanks for sharing those tidbits. How do operators plan to bring in more guests? Obviously, increasing frequency of social media outreach. People are on social, Instagram, Facebook, X, making sure that you're aware is keeping the brand top of mind. Over half plan to increase the frequency of emails and text. Again, if you can leverage automation or some level of AI tools to ensure that consistency happens and or increase the frequency, that's a positive for you. I do love the fact too, with text messaging, the more you know your guest, the more targeted those messages can be. If you have a tool that can segment and allow you to send a text to your highest spenders, maybe your newest followers, that will allow you to get better bang for your buck during those things. Typically, a more focused text message gets a better response rate than a generic spam one. So again, I think these are great things to look at. And over half optimize website to rank higher on Google. I'm going to show them some. Can I go off script here? I'm going to go off script. They knew I was going to do it. I want to go here. I'm going to show you guys something. So one of the things that's unique about Pop Menu, and you should look for your current provider too, to say, what are they doing that is a bit different? So I'm going to show you. The one thing is making sure that your platform is set up so you're optimized for Google, you're optimized for mobile. One of the things we do at Pop Menu is we actually create a separate web page behind the scenes for every single dish. So every dish, every cocktail, every event, and so on. Basically, that's giving Google a lot more information to pull. So regardless if you're on Pop Menu or using some other platform, you want to make sure that you've got great original content, and the more abundant content and linking and other stuff, the more likely you are to be found higher up on a search result. Now, you have to remember that most people run a lot of generic searches. Best Asian in Buckhead, best Italian in Newport Beach. But some people certainly run long tail searches. I have a hankering for shrimp and grits. I'm going to run best shrimp and grits in Atlanta. This is interesting, and this is a little bit of our own plug, but I think it's important because it is a big differentiator. And you'll get a lot of people tell you all this stuff in SEO, the proof is in the pudding. I ran this search because we met with, I would say, one of the more prominent groups in Atlanta, and they're known for shrimp and grits. In fact, they're on this screen right now. Every one of those clients is a Pop Menu client. If I keep scrolling down, this is a Pop Menu client, that's a Pop Menu client, that's a Pop Menu client, that's a Pop Menu client. Is that our best or worst example? It's typical. If you're dealing with a platform that truly knows about organic SEO, that is by far the biggest free channel on the planet. And so ask yourself, run searches in your market for your restaurant, for some of your key known entrees, and see how you're ranking. If you aren't, reach out to a provider and understand how you can improve your organic position. I think that's important. All right, I'm going back on script. Chip's like, what is happening here?
No, Tony, you know what I was going to say a second ago? I mean, I love that. I do. I do a lot of that all the time. What I was going to say is, you said when you can segment and automate to your list.
Yeah.
For a second, I just want to make sure this is really resonating. If I'm going to serve New Year's Eve dinner, right? Wouldn't it make sense? I've only got 200 seats. I'll say 200 seats for New Year's Eve dinner. I need to make a lot of money here. Wouldn't it be best, instead of one blanket e-blast, right? This is where we're going. This is where the rest of the world is in every other industry, and we're finally catching up. But before I send it to all 20,000 people on my email list, wouldn't it make the most sense to first send it to my 1,000 big spenders? Maybe my 1,000 wine people? Because everyone's going to come in and have dinner for, I'm making it up, fine dining restaurant, $300 a head for New Year's Eve. Don't I also want to send it to the people who spend on average $300, $400, $500 plus on a bottle of wine every time they come? Because their money is greener. That button a seat is more valuable to me. So maybe my first e-blast is to my heavy hitters, my big spenders, and they don't even realize that they're getting a 24-hour head start. And then I send it to the other people. Their money is just greener. I'm then filling the seats with people who are just more valuable to me. So when we talk about making the place recession-proof, that's like a direct activity you can do that will make more top-line revenue, and which will result in more bottom line in a restaurant.
Yeah. I refer to my wife all the time. My wife is vegan. Now she will make an exception for Max's fried chicken, so I want to be very clear. But I talk about that a lot, because when she gets a text or an email and it's just a generic spam and it's about the pork ribs, not only does she not want to engage in that, but if she continues to receive those, she feels like you don't know her and she just unsubscribes. And that's a normal consumer behavior. But if she gets a text message about the featured vegan option that week, not only is she going to be okay with that, she's very likely to engage with it. But you have to know your guests in order to do those things. 100%, couldn't agree more. All right, questions every restaurant operator should ask. There's 5 questions that we think everyone should ask. And then their first one is, am I easy to find? When consumers look for restaurants near me online, am I on the first page of search results? I just showed you an example of shrimp and grits. Again, our platform is very unique when it comes to organic. So if you're using us, that's a good thing to look at. If you're not using us, again, run some searches that you think would fit your restaurant and see how you're showing up. If you're not showing up on that first page, it means you're not getting traffic from that channel, and you want to see what you can do to change that. We'll go into some of these other questions. Obviously, knowing our guests, reaching out to guests frequently enough. Where can I automate, and do I know what's working? The most common questions we get asked are, what should we do next, and how do I know if it's working? So let's start off with Max's. I gave a little precursor there. But here, the restaurant that's easy to find is Max's in North America. If a consumer searches best Filipino food in Las Vegas, Max is the first restaurant that comes up in Google. That's because they very intentionally built the websites for their locations to rank high on Google and other search engines. And it really starts with their online menu. This is an example here. Again, I've been there a couple of times. This place is fantastic. I love Max's. But it starts with their online menu. If you make it interactive, meaning you have visual content for dishes, certainly for your high profit items, signature dishes that you know if Chip tries that, it's very likely to create a long-term customer. Being able to identify things or allow them to tell you what their favorite items are, things they might want to try, events they might want to attend. All this stuff is allowing you to have insights and basically the close relationship with Chip and care that other restaurants aren't going to have with their guests. And so if you go back to that stat and say, well, consumer budget for restaurant spending went from 40 to 30%, what that really means is Chip's going out to eat. He's still going out to eat, but instead of going out 3 times a week, now he's going twice a week. How do you make sure you're one of those 2 choices? And I think that's what it's all about when you think about recession proofing. But again, these are all practices you're going to use in good times too. But I want to highlight that because I think they get a ton of exposure through Google. And that's a big factor versus things like a PDF or static text. If you have a PDF as your primary menu today, you absolutely need to change that. Google doesn't index that properly is a very simple way to describe it. It is costing you some free traffic. So get with your provider, your contractor, whatever you're using, and make sure that you make that adjustment. Care, you're on the mic. You're in the spotlight finally. Thanks for being so patient. What has been your experience with the interactive menus and maybe some other ways that you've increased your brand visibility? Maybe you can highlight that for the group.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So at Max's, it's really a niche customer base. So we're a Filipino restaurant. So the keywords are really the most important part. So part of working with Pop Menu was we go in the back end of the website and really look into the keywords that best fit for the pages. And also and the reviews that we get on each dishes is really important, and they need to be approved as well so that they can be posted on each of the menu items, so that when someone just search best, say, Filipino fried chicken in Las Vegas, that review that you got in your Filipino fried chicken dish, then it will appear on Google. So it's really important to get reviews as well. That's really great with working with Pop Menu, because they really give us ideas on how to create more SEO optimization for our website. A part of the things that they do is the raffle draw. That's really effective for us. So you give us a review and you get $300 or something like that, and it gives us a lot of reviews. And this comes with the automated message as well, because when they actually order from our website, we send them over an automated email saying, hey, you purchased this chicken or you purchased this crispy pork hog. Can you give us review on that? So that's one of the things that we're currently doing with our website.
Awesome. I was gonna ask you how you encouraging people to submit those reviews, and because it sounds like you're doing both online and on-prem, which is great. Yeah, and just what you're seeing here is actually the Max's site, and what I always you'll hear us refer to this as a first-party review, whereas something like Yelp, Google would be considered like a third-party review. We believe, and the data would suggest that we've been accurate, is a first-party review in many ways is more powerful at influencing the consumer. The way I describe it to people is, I might see an Instagram post or a Facebook ad. Most likely I did a Google search, or someone told me about Chip's Cafe and I typed it directly in my phone. Usually we see something that piques our attention. And a typical consumer journey is I see something that says, oh, that looks great. I go to the site, specifically to the menu page. That's the decision point for restaurants to validate. Am I going to like what's on the menu? What are their specials? What are their features, etc.? The first part of review also is attached to the specific item that the consumer is interested in. I'll speak to my wife again. My wife's vegan. She cares what people are saying about the vegan options. So not only does she hear at the peak of decision making, but now she's getting a review specific to the thing that she is absolutely the most interested in. And that ultimately gives you a better chance at converting them. So awesome stuff. Thanks, Kara, for sharing that. Second question, how well do I know my guests? I venture to say this is the most important one. How well do we know our guests? Consumers have been taught by sites like Amazon to expect a really personalized experience based on their preferences. Restaurants that automatically collect and capitalize on their guest data in marketing, they have a significant advantage. I want to turn this over to Chip, but I think that Amazon one is something to think about. And we sell this to restaurants all the time. And my wife has an addiction to Amazon. We're working on it. But when you order something on Amazon, if you go to look for, say, a pair of jeans, you never just get a text description of that jean. You see a visual. You see reviews about that specific item. You see recommendation. You see a one-click path to purchase. At Pop Menu, what we did is we looked at that experience and said that's a much more efficient experience, a much more personalized experience for the consumer, and ultimately that means it's better at converting for the business owner. So what we've done is we've largely applied what we call Amazon e-com principles to the restaurant space. We were the first ones to do that. Obviously now people are starting to incorporate more visual content, which is a great positive, but making it a bit more interactive will help you understand and really learn more about your guest. Chip, you have a great example of how Best Buy has approached personalization. I think I know what you're going to talk about. Maybe you can share that for the group, and how would that apply basically a similar or same approach for restaurants?
Yeah, let me share the case study, and then I'll share a real life example from one of my clients. So I share this all the time. We were talking about this the other day with Brendan. So Best Buy, 15 or 20 years ago, they ran this big, so they do it every year, right? At the end of August, beginning of September, we're coming into football season. Football's huge in America. They know they sell a lot of TVs because people are looking at their old crappy TV, and then they're thinking, wouldn't it be great to see, the game on a beautiful TV? And they started doing this thing like 15, 20 years ago, where at the checkout counter, right, or like throughout the process, they just asked you, they said, hey, oh, by the way, what's your favorite football team? And you said a name, and then you just clicked one of the teams, right? So you said, oh, Jets, Giants, Eagles, Commanders, whatever it was, you clicked a thing. What happened is that on the back end in their CRM and their email automations, when you got an email about TVs in the future, and it's look at this big beautiful TV, you didn't see some random team on there. You saw someone, right? I clicked Eagles. I'm from Philadelphia, and now all my things are branded green. I see an person in the Eagles jersey on the screen, and what happens is that it puts the viewer at ease. They don't even realize that they feel at home, that they feel comfortable. But Best Buy said, I got you. I know what you care about. And if seeing the Eagles on this screen is just getting you one step closer, because they know, I don't care about seeing the Jets on the screen. I hate the Jets. I want to see the Eagles. And so in their marketing, they did this. It was funny. I was sharing that same case study with one of my clients, because he said he really wanted to, he does a barbecue restaurant out in Long Island. And he said catering is getting bigger and bigger, but he really wants to make it explode this year. And this is over the summer we were talking about it. He says, I want to be the Sunday go-to. You're going to have all the guys over to watch the game. I want them to get my food, make it really easy for them. I said, great, then we can make a campaign. And one of the things that I suggested, I said, reach out to your list. And I say, hey, I'm thinking about offering barbecue, all-in-one packages for every Sunday during game day. Answer two questions. Number one, would you be interested in this, yes or no? And number two, who's your favorite team, Jets or Giants? Because everybody on Long Island is going to click Jets or Giants. And so immediately, remember I said in the beginning, marketing is about getting people to raise their hands and change their behavior. We got a lot of people who said yes to the question. So now we know who to communicate with. Those are the people who said, yes, I'd be interested in this product. And now we know how to personalize that experience. So we started sending a series of emails following up that questionnaire. Anybody who opted in yes, opted in for the communication. And if they clicked Giants, they got a blue email. If they clicked Jets, they got a green email. And their sales skyrocketed this year as opposed to the last 2 years when he tried to do it. It was like coming out of the pandemic. He launched this thing. And he told me, it was like, week 3 of the NFL. He's like, I've already blown all of my sales from last year out of the water, and it's only week 3. He's like, it was the opt-in, the yes or no, and the personalized communication. All he had to do was create 2 different emails. One goes to the blue fans, one goes to the green fans.
That's pretty slick. I like that.
It's pretty easy if you ask me.
Yeah, it sounds like it, but I mean, it seems. But I love the fact that a lot of this stuff is like is really just thinking about yourself as a consumer. You know,
Yep.
like what resonates with you, what stands out, what makes you feel like more special, right? Like those little things that go a long way. And I think that's a great way to approach the business. Awesome, that was great. Thanks so much for sharing that. So another thing here is keeping online ordering on your site as much as possible. You know, when you are using a third party that owns the data collection, you get the name, yes, you get the phone number, yes, possibly the delivery address, yes. But when you own the data collection, you're getting so much more. Their order history, allergens, things they love, things they want to try. You just get to build a more robust profile so that now when you want to build a campaign or you want to target chip, it seems so much more personal, very similar to what he's alluding to in that story. And I think that's really important. Obviously, the economics are better for you. You know, most of your first party ordering is certainly going to be better economics for you than the commissions you give up for third party delivery. Delivery sources can be great in terms of an acquisition channel. Most operators are trying to find the chips and the cares of the world and then find a way to convert them to a first party ordering customer where the economics are better, potentially more control over quality and things of that nature. Kara, you guys drove over 2.2 million in commission-free online orders so far this year, which is fantastic. I love the commission-free part.
Yes.
Congrats to you. How do you guys manage your online ordering, and what percentage of online sales are from direct online ordering versus, say, delivery?
Right. So I would say, you know, it's with Pop Menu, it really is a one ecosystem. So the way we do it is we promote it, and then we put it on our menu, and then we e-blast, we do text messages and all of that. The 2.2 million is about 28% coming from Pop Menu online ordering. So it's, and then all 7 out of 24 stores still have the third party delivery. However, coming from 24 stores, so that's about 71%. So really, just having that commission free was really the buy-in for us to not giving that commission to Uber Eats or DoorDash. So yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, I think they do a really nice job too of letting customers know when they come in through delivery, like, hey, you have options, and we try and make it easy for you. I do think what's important with ordering, first party ordering, is the more consistent your menu experience can be, the better. Meaning, if your core menu experience that I look out online is the same as when I click on the order button, that's going to limit what we call drop off, meaning people that start the process and then they stop the process. That sometimes happens when you'll see some restaurants, maybe some of you have your website, you have your menu, and then when they click to order, it takes into a separate tab, which could be maybe your POS ordering system, which is going to have a different look and feel, maybe a little bit different scrolling and stuff like that. Just know that every time you ask a consumer to do something different and or take another step like clicks and scrolls, that means you're likely going to have more drop off. So looking for a menu experience that's consistent with both your on-prem and online will certainly help with that. I think also keeping that in your domain is another page of content, which again goes back to the first responsibility of a great partner, which is how do we drive more awareness, ultimately more traffic back to your business. So thanks for sharing that, Kara. I'm going to go here. So consolidating guest profiles. The other thing you want to do is integrate tech so that you centralize your guest data. I think that's really important. It can be your jobs are hard enough and busy enough. If you have to go to 8 different places to find a piece of information about care, it's very likely we're not going to end up taking any action there. So when your guest data is living in different systems that don't talk to each other, well or at all, then that's a problem that you want to solve for. You're only getting part of the picture in those scenarios. So look for tech partners that can consolidate, either because they have so many things in one spot like a pop menu, and or they've got integration relationships or partnerships maybe with reservation providers like OpenTable, or maybe they have a good relationship and they're sharing data back and forth with your POS. Those are definitely things to think about and consolidate for. Question number 3, am I reaching guests off enough? Do another audience poll. How often do you reach out to guests via email or text? Once a week, twice, every other week, and on we go.
I'll be very curious to see the answers to this one. You know, we ran a really interesting experiment about this. We just talked about it on stage down in Florida. I'll share with that as we go along. You know how many times Best Buy emails their list?
Let's see. I'm gonna guess twice a week.
6
a week?
They blast their list on average 6 times a week.
Wow.
But you know what you remember? You remember 2.
Yeah. Well, there you go. that was perfect.
You remember 2. That's the thing. It's always a piece where you're like, oh, I don't want to email them because I don't want to piss people off. You won't. They're just busy. You'll ignore them. Like, they'll ignore your message, which is okay, because maybe I'm not in the mood for Filipino food this week. Not saying I won't be next week or later this month, but just not this week. So I ignore them. It doesn't mean I don't like Max's. It just means not right now.
Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. I think we're good. We're going to end the poll here. There we go. We share the results. I think you guys can see those. Awesome. Well, let's go into consumer stat. The reality is most consumers want to hear from their favorite restaurants at least once a week, which goes into what Chip was just talking about. A lack of outreach is a lost revenue opportunity. I think that's 100 spot on, 100%. Care, this all comes down to like building a strong guest contact list or a follower list. You guys have done a great job with that with a variety of different tools over the years. I think you have a story from your Maitre D days. I think maybe that's the one you were kind of sharing earlier, which was perfect, right? But I don't know if there's anything you'd add to that or if this is different, but what do you recommend your customers to expand their contacts? You've mentioned, hey, how do we train staff so they can do what you did earlier? Are there other things that restaurants can be doing to make it easier for people to follow them?
Yeah, so that's a good question because we had our anniversary last month, and we did a raffle to get all the contacts in, and it was actually a good strategy for us to get contacts. And there were about 100 people that signed up. So now we just have to put it in, and now we can tag them as the anniversary people. And then the next time we have the anniversary, we can then email them. So I think the contact list right now is really important.
Huge. What you see on the screen is performance of some of those campaigns. First off, if you go look at some of the top email companies in the world, and you drill down to the open rate, meaning somebody reading an email from a restaurant, and the click-through rates, meaning I click to call you or I click to order or some form of action. Historically, I think the restaurant-specific metrics are, I think it's roughly 20% open rate and about a 1.1, 1.2 click rate. What you see here is because Care and his team have worked so hard to get closer to their guests and know more things about them, and they're collecting a full data information, it's not just contact info. You can see that their mass messages are drastically outperforming industry averages. The automated emails, and these are automated emails in the Pop Menu system, these are automated based on a very specific guest interaction. If somebody told you they wanted to try a dish, then Care and his team have an automated message that 24, 48 hours later will send a note to Jenny. Hey Jenny, we see you want to try this. Did you get a chance to come in? If not, click here to order. That level of automation is really powerful. What you also see with the open rate is it's higher because it's more focused. And at 56% versus an industry average of 20%, this is how you recession-proof your business. Those open rates, I would argue all day long, are impossible if you don't know more about your guests. Plain and simple. So I thought that was a great example. And appreciate
I might add something though.
Yeah.
So recently, we've been looking into our contact list, and our strategy right now is to really build the relationship with the customers. So what we did was we looked at we host a Filipino American History Month dinner. It was a complimentary. However, we wanted the loyal customers to be part of this dinner. And what we did was we looked at pop menu and we looked at the high spender of that location. And we then tagged them as, we will invite these people to dinner. And great enough, they came, they were invited, they came, and they were so surprised that they got invited to a complimentary. And I think we as operator, we need to start building the relationship with our customers, because without them, we're nothing.
Tony,
Awesome.
there's I just want to talk about these two things again, right? Mass emails, right? On the left, 1.5 million emails sent. That was work we had to do to generate $500,000, right? As an on the operator side. On the other hand, this is less than 200,000 emails that we didn't have to send as an operator, that the computer just did in the background. So earlier we were talking about increased activity, but smarter activity, right? The efficiency that happens here, and it drove 200K, almost half, right? With a fraction of the, again, because it's specific, it's segmented, it's targeted, but a fraction of the effort, and actually effort that only had to be put in once to set up all these automations, and then it's 200K that's just being made for you in the background. I mean, it's the equivalent of passive income for the restaurant.
Right. That's a great point, because if you look at it in a really simplistic way, you say, well, for every one that gets delivered, I got more than $1 back. Like, there isn't a restaurant or an investment in the world that wouldn't do that. Whereas the mass message, while still very effective, I basically spent 1.4 to get 50 cents back. So it was 3x. So that's a telling stat. That was awesome. Thank you for pointing that out. Recommended outreach, email, SMS once a week. Chip, you touched base on this already, but from your perspective, you've seen automated outreach from other industries. You mentioned Best Buy, other things like travel sector that have been particularly effective in shaping those experiences. Can you talk more about that, or do you feel like the Best Buy?
Yeah, I mean, I think with mass emails, I mean, I think what's happening is we're becoming more segmented. We are going to send more and more specialized emails. I think we are late to the party. Certainly, we see this with hotels and airlines. They do this really well. This is something I talk about quite a bit, right? When you go and search for, flights to the Bahamas, and then all of a sudden you start getting emails about flights to Bahamas, they know you and they say, hey, don't forget to book that. We'd love to take you to the Bahamas, right? And then eventually what's going to happen is that our consumers, not only dine at restaurants, but also fly on planes and stay at hotels and shop on Amazon. And it will become expected that we have the same level of communication that they get from other places, other brands that they deal with. They get it from Nike, they get it from Apple, they get it from Amazon. They will expect it from us. So the more we can get to know them, it's the same thing Kara was saying a couple minutes ago, that consistency matters more than volume, right? Consistency matters more than quantity, and then the quality of those emails is going to matter even more.
Right. That's right. I do see sometimes restaurants in their teams, they get frozen trying to write the perfect message every time. And I think that can be counterproductive versus the consistency of it. Especially there's so many tools nowadays that can help you with the copy. There's certain, AI tools that you can use to help, put your words together in a better format, but consistency is something that you can't sacrifice. Okay. Fourth question, where can I automate? Obviously that's a key thing. This is showing you the Pop Menu AI marketing calendar. What we've done here is we've created an entire month's worth of activity that we pre-populate. It could be 12 to 14 social posts, 4 to 5 emails, 2 to 4 texts. We create the content based on real life activity and content that's happening in your business on your site. And we populate that calendar so we ensure that there's a certain number. We send it to you 10 days in advance of the month, so you get to play the role of editor-in-chief. This ensures consistency. You still have a say in what happens. If you don't like the content, you simply adjust it. If you want to change the imagery, you can adjust it. Here you can see they generate the content and it creates a great social post in a matter of seconds. A lot of times individual tools like email will have some level of automation. We talked about the results from CARE's automated email campaigns. Those are things on Pop Menu, for example, that you set them in the onboarding. It's kind of like set it and forget it. and you ensure that those things are happening constantly. Someone tells you they love a dish, we thank them so much for that, and we encourage them to write a review. And that stuff just keeps building and building on your business. So I think that's important. Fido is a company that used to take 4 to 5 days to create their marketing content each month. Now, according to Eric, the head of ops there, it takes 4 to 5 hours. So, and hours means you've got more time back in your day to do certain stuff. So this is AI marketing in action. If you've been on a previous webinar, I actually shared this with that operator I spoke to this morning, and we had Ruby's on our webinar before. What you see in the bottom left is this is just your online ordering attributable to the specific marketing actions. In December and January, what you can't see here is that she was averaging about $1,500 a month in online orders, per month, because she didn't really market herself. In mid-February, she turns on the AI marketing calendar, and the results went up to $6,300 in revenue. And then the following month, it was 10,000. I think it was like 12,000, then 10,000, 11,000. In June, they forgot to approve stuff. The husband was out of town. What this chart isn't showing you is they still did 5,000 in revenue from this email because it carried over, which is still nearly 3 times their historical average. And then they turn it right back on in July. It went up to 15, then 18,000, and so on. I could pull up 1,000 customers using this, and you're going to see a very similar trajectory. And really what it tells us, it just reaffirms consistency is really key. And then the quality of that continues to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And you can see how it just keeps building and compounding. So we got to highlight that one. I always love sharing the Ruby story. I think it's just a phenomenal example. All right, quick AI phone answering. This is something that Pop Menu developed. I believe we were the first that was restaurant specific. To me, this is a no-brainer. Virtually everyone we show this to will purchase it. And I think it's a great example. As I mentioned before, the cost of labor can be expensive, especially when you think about all the other costs associated with that hire. You train them for 2 months, and then they leave in month 6 or 7, and you're constantly back on this steering wheel. And also, if somebody's calling to place an order on a busy Thursday night, it might be a noise distraction, a language barrier. Maybe you have an inexperienced team member who can't articulate the menu. You don't capture the email, so they don't go into your marketing engine. It's like, or you can use AI automation and phone, which can answer every query. I might have a dietary, hey, do you cook with peanut oil? Because I need to know that before I make the order. If you can't answer that question quickly and accurately, people assume it's a negative response, so they don't complete the order. I can handle 300 calls at the exact same time, so now my hostess or whoever is answering the phone can serve as guest in front of them. I think it's a great example of how people are using it. Kara, you guys have used AI to answer almost 340,000 calls. You've saved an estimated just under 4,000 hours from your staff, and roughly a third of calls were what we call direct revenue, meaning like orders, wait list, reservations, etc. How is AI answering help provide a better guest experience for both you and your team, or your team and your guest?
Yeah. So most of our customers are the baby boomers and the older generation. So it was kind of hard for us to get this going because, they cannot really talk on the phone. Like one of the things were, how do I order? How do I do this? How do that? I don't know technology. So I think that was part of the challenges. However, we were able to really let the customer know how to order, how to use this, and it saved a lot. It saved a lot of hours, actually. I used to be a host in one of our locations before, and I know some of these questions from the customers, like when do you open, when do you close. Right. So just generic stuff that AI could just answer it without even one of your staff answers the phone. So it saved a lot of hours from the host part of our.
The last thing you want to do, right, is take a server away from a 6-top to go answer a phone to say, yeah, you close at 9 o'clock on Sunday, or yes, you're pet friendly and things of that nature. So I do think those are, when you add that up over a series of time, it really adds up to make the restaurant a lot more efficient. Last question, every restaurant asks, do I know what's working in terms of, is my marketing effective? What's the ROI? And what are the things like that? To know what's working, what to do next. Those are the 2 common questions we get asked, is how do we know what's working and what should we do next? So we invest a lot of time and resource into creating different dashboards and reporting so that people can go to one spot and get all of this information. And then if we can see that certain emails or other campaigns are performing well, then we actually go ahead and create some of those campaigns where you can just simply approve or edit. And I think, like I said, our job is to do what we know. We help you do what we know you need to do to be successful, meaning either we have to do that action for you, or we have to make it so easy because we know that you're just stressed with time and things of that nature. To know what's working, what to do next, having a centralized views obviously matter. Chip, what recommendations do you have in terms of what restaurants should be tracking?
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to what I was saying.
Probably. Yeah.
What's that?
They probably need to be tracking a million things, but you got to
No.
for us.
No, I think it's funny. I wrote about this in my book. When I think about marketing, there's really only 3 things we need to be doing to successfully market a restaurant. So it's overly simple. Is it easy? No, but it should be simple. We need to focus on customer acquisition. So what are the activities we're doing to raise awareness, build trust, and get new butts into the seats? So that's a number we should track, the activity we're doing to make that thing happen and the results, right? Customer retention, meaning how good are we at getting first-time diners to come back for a second visit, and about how often, how frequently will a guest of ours join us every month or every 6 months. That's an important number to know. That's that customer retention number. Again, if we have a baseline, then we can set a goal as to how to improve it. And then I've always called the last one evangelism. Evangelism is word of mouth. How much are people talking about you? You know, sharing your things, spreading the word about you, leaving reviews, all of that, right? So much of what you guys have built helps key directly into that. But that's it. Measure your first time diners, your customer acquisition. Measure your retention statistics. Measure how often people talk about you and what they say about you and how they rate you. Those are the 3 most important things. There's a lot we can do below that, but those are the things that really matter.
I love that. And to get them to talk about you, make it easy for them to talk about you. So, one of the things like with us is the ability to share something directly from a menu item. I can post it to social, I can send it to friends via text. That goes back to, again, that first responsibility was how do we help increase the awareness for your business? And I think consumer guest sharing is a great way to have them talking about you, because your best customers end up becoming your best salespeople, right? And so making it easy for them is a big advantage that you have. Cool. I want to leave you with just 2 last things. One is Kapow Noodle Bar, great customer of ours. They consolidated their tech stack. Our whole thing was we want to put as many things in one place as possible. We want to make sure that those systems are talking to each other, which improves performance. Automate as much as we can so that we know that stuff gets done, so that you have the consistency, and also because we know that you're busy. Using AI answering to free up their staff is something Kapow Noodle Bar has done a great job of, and they leaned on data. Many of the things that Chip just shared with us, they lean on that to make their marketing decision. What's the result? They've added over 20,000 guest contacts. Their average email open rate is insane. That click-through rate is insane. And you can see the amount of money, estimated revenue from 1,000 hours saved with the AI answering. So smarter, high-performing campaigns. Every business owner is trying to do more with less. Things like automation, consolidation, and use of AI are going to allow you to do that. It'll help you get through challenging times and also make sure that you're maximizing or optimizing the good times as well. We do think that that the dynamic menu is really key, because it does open you up to all this stuff, which then makes everything else that much more effective. The things like the AI answering, just so you're aware, maybe you like what your current digital platform looks like, but you need phone help. Pop Menu has an AI answering system that you can use just that. You don't have to be on everything else. Obviously, it performs even better when they're connected, but really appreciate Chip and Kara for joining us today. I hope you guys got some valuable insights from us. I'm sure it was much better listening to Chip and Kara share real life examples and things to consider. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. I'm sure our audience really appreciated it. For everyone else that attended, we appreciate it. I know that was a long webinar, but again, hopefully if you take 1 or 2 things out, it should help your business. And I hope you guys all have a great holiday season and you're really prepared for 2025, because it's going to be a fun one. All right, guys, thanks a lot. Have a great rest of the week.